By the end of this video, you will know every single food that is completely illegal to eat in some country on Earth. Not a partial list, not the 3 famous ones everyone already mentions. The full picture. We're talking about a cheese with live maggots inside it, a songbird eaten whole bones and all, an egg that was banned for 40 years in one of the biggest countries on the planet, and a snack that was outlawed by an armed militia because of its shape. Stick with me, because by the end, you will be able to name foods that are illegal, explain exactly why, and know which country you'd actually have to avoid them in. Here's why this actually matters to you. If you travel, this list can save you from a real fine or worse, because some of these laws carry actual criminal penalties, not just a slap on the wrist. If you cook, several of these foods are sold under different names online, and knowing why they're restricted helps you understand what you're really buying. And if you just love food trivia, this is the kind of list that wins arguments and dominates comment sections. These bans usually come from one of 4 reasons: animal cruelty, public health risk, conservation of an endangered species, or pure cultural and political pressure. Keep those 4 categories in your head, because every food on this list fits into at least one of them, and by the end, you'll be sorting new examples into these categories yourself. Let's start with casu. This is a Sardinian sheep cheese that is deliberately left to rot until cheese fly larvae hatch and start digesting the fat inside it, breaking it down into an incredibly soft, almost liquid texture. What makes it unique is that locals eat it, with the live maggots still inside, sometimes thousands of them per wheel, because removing them is considered a sign the cheese has gone bad. The surprising detail is that the larvae can jump up to 6 inches when disturbed, so people traditionally eat it with one hand shielding their eyes. It is illegal to sell in Italy and across the European Union due to food safety law, which makes it a black market product traded quietly between Sardinian families. This one is for extreme food adventurers only, not casual tourists. The next one surprises almost everyone the first time they hear it. The ortolan bunting is a tiny European songbird, smaller than your thumb. That is force-fed grain in darkness until it doubles its body weight, then drowned in Armagnac brandy and roasted whole. Diners eat the entire bird in one bite, bones, organs, and all, traditionally with a napkin over their head to hide the act from God, according to old French custom. What makes it unique isn't the taste, it's the ritual, since the dish has been treated as a forbidden luxury for over a century. The bird's population has dropped so sharply from this practice that France finally enforced a full ban in 2007, with violators facing fines up to 6,000 euros per bird. This dish is for collectors of culinary history, not for anyone who actually cares about songbird conservation. Now here's one that's legal, but barely. Fugu is the Japanese name for pufferfish, an animal that carries tetrodotoxin in its liver, skin, and ovaries, a poison roughly 1,200 times deadlier than cyanide by weight. What makes it unique is that there is no antidote, so chefs must train for years and pass a strict government licensing exam before they're legally allowed to prepare it for the public. The surprising fact is that some chefs intentionally leave a tiny trace of the toxin in the dish, just enough to create a slight numbing tingle on the lips. Treated as part of the authentic experience, preparing or selling fugu without a license is illegal across Japan and can result in jail time for the chef. This dish is reserved for people who trust a system, not for anyone trying to DIY it at home. The next one has nothing to do with poison and everything to do with politics. Shark fin soup is a Chinese delicacy where the fin itself adds almost no flavor on its own, since it's prized purely for its gelatinous texture, while the actual taste comes from the broth around it. What makes it controversial is the harvesting method called finning, where fishermen slice the fins off a live shark and throw the rest of the animal back into the ocean to die. The surprising number here is that finning kills an estimated 73 million sharks every year, which is part of why shark populations have crashed across multiple ocean regions. Selling shark fin is now banned or heavily restricted in places like California, Hawaii, and across the entire European Union. This dish is something most modern chefs are actively phasing out, even in regions where it remains technically legal. But the next one might be the most surprising ban on this whole list because it's not exotic at all. Foie gras is fattened duck or goose liver, prized for a buttery, almost melt-in-your-mouth texture that regular liver simply doesn't have. The fattening comes from a process called gavage, where a tube is inserted down the bird's throat to force-feed it corn multiple times a day until its liver swells up to 10 times its normal size. The surprising fact is that California banned the sale and production of foie gras specifically because of this force-feeding method, making it one of the only places in the United States where a luxury food is outright illegal. India has gone even further by banning its import entirely. This dish is for fine dining purists, but it's becoming harder to find legally with each passing year. Now let's talk about caviar. But not just any caviar. Beluga caviar comes from the beluga sturgeon, a fish that can live over 100 years and doesn't reach reproductive maturity until it's roughly 20 years old. What makes it unique is the size of the eggs themselves, some of the largest of any caviar fish, with a buttery flavor that collectors describe as unmatched. The surprising detail is that overfishing has been so severe that wild beluga sturgeon populations have dropped by more than 90% in the last few decades. Because of this, the United States banned the import of wild beluga caviar entirely back in 2005, allowing only farm-raised versions to be sold legally. This one is for people with serious budgets, since even the legal farmed version often costs hundreds of dollars per ounce. Here's one that surprises almost every American watching this. Kinder Surprise eggs are chocolate eggs with a small toy capsule hidden inside, incredibly popular across Europe, Asia, and Latin America since the 1970s. What makes them unique is the combination of candy and a tiny build-it-yourself toy in a single product, something almost no other candy brand has replicated successfully. The surprising fact is that the United States banned them for over 4 decades because federal law prohibits embedding a non-food object directly inside food. Due to choking risk, it wasn't until 2018 that a redesigned version called Kinder Joy, which separates the chocolate and toy into 2 compartments, was finally allowed to be sold legally in American stores. This one is for parents who now finally don't have to smuggle chocolate eggs back from vacation. The next one is a national dish that got caught up in food safety law. Haggis is Scotland's most iconic dish, a mixture of minced sheep heart, liver, and lungs combined with oatmeal, suet, and spices, traditionally cooked inside the animal's stomach lining. What makes it unique is the texture, savory and slightly crumbly, closer to a rich sausage filling than anything resembling organ meat on its own. The surprising fact is that the United States Department of Agriculture banned sheep lung from the human food supply back in 1971, citing concerns over stomach fluid contaminating the lung tissue during slaughter. Because lung is a traditional ingredient, authentic haggis has been illegal to import into the U.S. for over 50 years, forcing American versions to use a modified recipe. This dish is for traditionalists, but only if they're willing to settle for the lung-free American substitute. Now, here's one you've probably had without realizing. It's banned in plenty of places. Raw milk is exactly what it sounds like, milk that hasn't been pasteurized, meaning it hasn't been heated to kill off harmful bacteria like Salmonella, E. coli, and Listeria. What makes it unique is the flavor, often described as richer and creamier, with raw milk advocates claiming it preserves more natural enzymes and nutrients than the pasteurized version. The surprising fact is that the sale of raw milk for human consumption is illegal in over 20 U.S. states and fully banned in countries like Canada and Australia due to documented outbreaks of serious foodborne illness. In states where it is legal, it's often sold under strict labeling laws as pet food to get around the regulation. This one is for people who really trust their local farmer and ideally have a strong stomach for risk. But the next one isn't about health or animals at all. It's about a militia and a shape. Samosas are a deep-fried pastry filled with spiced potatoes, peas, or meat, eaten across South Asia, the Middle East, and East Africa for centuries, with tea or chutney. What makes them unique is the triangular fold itself, a shape that's been part of the snack's identity since medieval traders first brought it from Central Asia into India. The surprising fact is that in 2011, the extremist group Al-Shabaab banned samosas across parts of Somalia they controlled. reportedly because the triangular shape resembled the Christian Holy Trinity. Anyone caught cooking, selling, or eating one in those regions faced punishment under the group's strict rule. This is the only food on this entire list banned for a reason that has nothing to do with safety, animals, or conservation. The next one is a fruit that can genuinely kill you if you eat it at the wrong moment. Ackee is the national fruit of Jamaica, and when it's perfectly ripe and prepared correctly, it has a soft, buttery texture, often compared to scrambled eggs when cooked with salt. What makes it dangerous is that the unripe fruit contains a toxin called hypoglycin, which can cause a condition known locally as Jamaican vomiting sickness and, in severe cases, death. The surprising fact is that the United States bans the import of fresh ackee entirely, only allowing the canned, already processed version to be sold legally in stores. This means the dish most associated with Jamaican identity is technically illegal to bring into the U.S. in its raw form. This one is strictly for people who know exactly how to judge ripeness, not for casual experimenting. And one last quick one before we rank everything. Poppy seed bagels seem completely harmless, but the seeds naturally contain trace amounts of morphine and codeine left over from the opium poppy plant. The surprising fact is that eating just a few poppy seed bagels can cause a false positive on a drug test, which is why countries like Saudi Arabia and Singapore ban the seeds outright, treating them the same as other opium-derived substances at the border. This one applies to literally everyone who's ever grabbed a bagel without thinking twice about it. So now let's rank these from the mildest reason for a ban to the most extreme. At the bottom sits poppy seed bagels and raw milk, both restricted mainly for practical safety reasons that most people can work around with a little caution. Above that sits samosas, banned for a reason so strange it almost feels like an outlier rather than a pattern. In the middle, you've got kinder eggs and haggis, both banned over regulatory technicalities rather than any real danger, which is honestly the most avoidable category on this list. Higher up sits fugu and ackee, foods that are legitimately dangerous but only when prepared incorrectly, which makes the ban feel justified rather than excessive. Near the top are foie gras, shark fin, and beluga caviar, all banned because of how an animal is treated or how close a species is to disappearing entirely. And sitting at the very top, the one almost nobody saw coming, is the ortolan bunting, because it combines animal cruelty, a critically declining population, and a strange cultural ritual, all into a single forbidden dish. If you ask which ban actually makes the most sense once you understand the full story, it's hard to argue against that one, so here's the short version. Some of these foods are banned because they're dangerous if you mess up the prep. Some are banned because of how an animal was treated to make them, and one was banned by a militia because of a shape. Now you know all of them, and you know exactly why. Which of these foods had you already heard of, and is there one I missed that deserves to be on this list? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. If this video gave you something to talk about at dinner tonight, hit like and subscribe for more, because we cover a new food mystery like this every single week.